Hey guys, so we're getting ready to do a behind the scenes tour here at the Penguin Encounter. I'm definitely excited. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell to get future videos.
We're smoking while on the tour. We are going behind the scenes, so we want to make sure that we are keeping our animals safe. Now, for the very first part, just so that we can get some information and a little history going, I'm going to ask that we all sort of come stand right here. That way we allow the rest of our guests to flow right into the exhibit. All right, so this is a pretty special day for everybody because you will all get a chance to interact with penguins in a way that no other regular park guest does. And the reason being is that in a second we are going to be going behind the scenes. You will be meeting a penguin. You will be pretty much about this far apart from it. You will be touching a penguin, getting some pretty amazing pictures, as well as going into their exhibit. So it's about to get a lot colder for all of you. Don't worry, they tend to kick us out before our bodies completely drop in temperature, but we'll be fine, all right? So before we get started, I like to give a little history of how exactly this facility came to be. Well, it all started back in 1972 when the National Science Foundation approached SeaWorld with the idea of establishing a self-sustaining colony of Antarctic penguins. Now, the reason I emphasize Antarctic is because since the 1960s, we had already had penguins, but they were temperate weather penguins. The Humboldt penguins, which are part of our species survival plan on an entirely different area of the park. We will not get a chance to see those. But since the 1960s, we had already had that experience. That colony of penguins was thriving, doing really well, so we knew that we could take on this new challenge. But obviously, taking care of a cold weather penguin and a temperate weather penguin are two very different things. So we still had a lot of homework to do, a lot of data to collect, and because of that, we sent out staff scientists to be able to research and pretty much learn absolutely everything about cold weather species to be able to then have them here and house them. Finally, so 1960 we have our Humboldts. Up to 1972 we get that new challenge. 1983 we finally opened up our penguin facility to our general guests, which is the exhibit that we are inside of now. So I'm going to let these guests pass, and that way we can stop seeing my lovely face and we can start seeing some penguins. Of penguins. Now, when I say throughout the world, I don't mean to confuse any of you. I am actually only referring to the southern hemisphere. The reason being that penguins are only found in the southern hemisphere. So, I'm going to place us, ooh, that gave me a really good scare. I'm going to place us right in between these two benches right here, and I'll just be off to the side. If at any point you can't hear me, please feel free to let me know, all right? I just want to make sure that you're all getting a nice little view there of our penguins. So, again, penguins are going to be found in the southern hemisphere, so if any of you have ever seen those really adorable Coca-Cola commercials where it's the polar bears and the penguins and they're sitting back drinking their cokes, that would never actually happen in real life because polar bears are going to be all the way in the top north and the penguins are going to stay in the south. So unfortunately for the polar bear, they have no idea what penguins are. Alright? Now, out of those 18 species, cold weather species found in the world, so out of those 18 species, 12 happen to be temperate, so there are more temperate or warm weather species than there are cold weather. Now, let's start to name them off, shall we?
They're back here, they're very important to us. We'll start to follow me. We'll try to stick to the side of the building. There are going to be some cars or carts that can possibly pass by. So, even though we do have them back here, very, very important to us because we're trying to make sure that we are doing our very best to ensure that they are not going endangered or extinct. It's about to get a lot louder, so for this part, I'm going to try to walk a little faster up until we get to our key so that I can give you some really important details before we go there, okay?
So what I'll do is I'll go upstairs, hopefully find a good one that you guys will pet. And then after that, I'll bring them back upstairs, and then I will take you guys upstairs to check out the exhibit and show you guys what it's like. All right? So let's go deal. I'll go find that penguin, and I'll be right back.
All right, thank you. All right. Here that they are about to use the restroom. They have an amazing range when it comes to using the restroom, so it's a pretty good opportunity to either move back or left or right. All right. And now the other thing, we have our photographer here. If you do want to take any pictures with your personal phone, just go ahead and hand them off to me. I'm pretty well trained at this point. You don't even have to speak to me or look at me. You can just do this. All right. Now the way that they pick penguins is pretty cool. They go up there. They have a nice little fence, and they'll just say like, "Who wants to go meet some tour guests?" And some of them will actually volunteer themselves. Yeah, and of course our keepers are well acquainted with them by now, so they know which ones are a little bit more social and which ones do really well with tours, and then that's how they pick the one that is going to come down here. Obviously, it's never going to be like an emperor or a king because they're massive, right? Now we're also going to try to keep a nice little flow. We are a good sized group, so just to make sure that everybody gets a good opportunity with pictures, if you want to do group pictures as well, just go ahead and look over at any point. But we'll try to keep just a nice rotation. So wherever you started, you should.
Anyone want to guess what kind of species this is here? Macaroni, that's right. So this is one of our macaroni penguins. So we'll just kind of let them adjust here and get used to the temperature down here because it is a lot colder than it is upstairs in our exhibit. Anyone want to guess the temperature upstairs at the moment? 30? Roughly, yep, that's just about right. Our temperature here is about 27.3. So a lot colder up there than it is down here. So you'll see these guys, I think I already noticed, right here is a great example. So what he was just doing right there is actually shaking out all that extra heat that he has trapped in his down layer of feathers. That down layer, obviously helps trap and keep the feathers nice and warm, keeps these birds nice and warm. So he was just letting that heat all expel out underneath those feathers. There he goes and does it again. So these guys are pretty remarkable. These macaronis, they like to, they run around and play on the snow and everything. You'll find these guys in the Antarctic area, but you won't find them on the continent itself. You'll see them on the periphery. The only guys that you would see on the continent itself are the emperors and the Adelie penguins, which I'll point out to you guys when we go upstairs. And so these guys are part of the crested penguin family. These guys the other parts of their families can go a lot. You can see them in like the Indian Ocean area, coming out of the Philippines, those islands and everything like that. But these guys are pretty cool and unique. All right, buddy, how you doing? So yeah, he looks pretty comfy now.
Do they all have names?
So not all of them have names. We give some nicknames, but these bands that you see on their flippers here are how we determine who's who upstairs. Okay. So this particular guy, I'll kind of point out the bands and everything. The orange band here is just our species identifier, our ID actually, so Macaroni. The white one is just a spacer, and then the black, purple, black is 181. So he's 181. And this guy is a couple years old now. And yeah, he looks pretty comfy. So what I'll have you guys do is I'll start with you, miss. And you can just come over, pet him right on the back like this. He is a very energetic little spunky guy, so he might roam around the counters here. Yeah, tell me what you think. Kind of soft, huh? So that top layer that you guys are seeing, That has, these guys have a preening gland that's right near the base of their tail that has, is where they get the oil that they kind of fly to their feathers to kind of keep the top layer of feathers hydrophobic or water repellent. That helps to keep that down feather underneath that nice and dry so that it keeps it, so kind of like a wetsuit, you know, kind of keeps the top, or like a dry suit rather, if you're familiar with that. There's another little Macaroni. She is 161, or 131 rather, with the red band there. And she's actually super nice, very peaceful. She's not as rambunctious and running around and crazy as the other guy. So yeah, we'll just kind of give her a second to adjust here.
Super mellow.
Yeah, very nice, very calm. I think she's about 13, 14 years old.
Oh, okay.
So.
How can you tell?
Based on their files, like that's mostly how we keep track of them. But sometimes their numbers will help us kind of gauge, you know, how we do have some emperors, for example, like number 5. So he was part of the original collection of emperors back in the 70s. So he's a very older bird, but mostly thanks to our veterinary staff and, you know, being able the lack of predators in our exhibit and you know, harsh environmental factors that might go into it.
How old is Nana?
So most birds can live to be you know, 15, 20 years out in the wild. But here in our park, we can probably get them to about 30 or so. And some are, you know, get into the late 30s, even into the mid 40s. So yeah, she looks like she's pretty tough if you'd like to give her a pet.
Do they like to be touched, like held in contact like that, or?
So some of the birds, yes, some of the birds, no. If we were able to hand rear them and kind of be part of the co-parenting process when they were hatched, they're much more friendly to us. They're much more, you know, much more endearing, kind of like she is. Some of the other birds are just like, you know, will run away from us.
So what did you study to become a penguin keeper?
So I studied biology. I went to school for bio, and then I kind of got my foot in the door here at SeaWorld, and then I actually worked with the rescue team for a while, which got me some bird experience with all the different various birds, you know, that's from around our county, and then I was able to get over here. The low 20s, high teens, low 20s, if they're really booking it.
Did anybody miss a picture? We got a picture.
Yeah. Cool, excellent. So yeah, she's pretty sweet. And then she just scream herself there. So. But yeah, within another thing about their feathers, so within about a square inch of on their back, on their chest, there's about 100 feathers, all densely packed in. So that's kind of how they keep that air trapped in there, as well as staying warm. But just for the sake of time, I'm letting you guys see upstairs. I'll take her up, and then I'll start to take you guys up there. So, sound good?
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on, please.
It once you have it in your hand, and then we will see their down feathers as well. If you had, like, I don't know if you were able to scratch at all on the penguins. They really like it, like when you scratch it behind their necks, because it's sort of like they preen each other like that. So you would have been able to feel their down feathers. So this is their top layer, nice and dense, short feathers, drastically different from any other bird that you might see. They're gonna have much longer, and I don't know, they're a little bit flimsier. Temperature. So this is that bottom layer that they are going to have. So whenever you keep that water out of their feathers. So even when they're coming out of the water, you'll see just sort of like droplets falling off of them because of that. Mention out in the exhibit is going to be that they're going to be creating a nest, right? And that's how they're going to be incubating it. For kings and for emperors, they are actually going to be putting it right on top of their feet. It's never touching the ice, right? Because if it's touching the ice, then it's freezing over. So it's just right on top of their ice, sort of right on top of their feet, sort of like in between their ankles, I guess you could sort of say. And they have a brood patch, which is just an excess layer of skin. So it's that folds right over that little egg, and that's how it incubates at about 96.5 to 98.5 degrees. I've heard both. So it's not necessarily like a kangaroo that they have an actual pouch that it can go into and it'll stay nice and safe. So that egg is pretty much able to fall out at any point, right? Penguins are not the best walkers. They're amazing swimmers, but not great at walking. And like, you know, if there's ever any little rock or whatnot, that little egg can definitely fall out. So the egg is actually shaped just like a little pear because it's meant to help it. If it was a ping pong ball shaped, then it would just roll right out. But this way, bear with me, you guys. Fingers crossed. Yeah, so it's gonna roll right back in to their feet. So not making it too hard for them to be able to catch, or to, you know, sneak that right behavior, which is that if you're thinking about it, how do they brace those cold Antarctica storms? Well, it's called huddling, and they'll get into huddles of about 6,000 emperor penguins. And if you see it slow motion, or if you see it still, it almost looks like they're not even moving, but once you see that video speed up, they are constantly moving around, so the ones on the outside will eventually make it into the middle of it and then back out. So they're constantly sharing that warmth to make sure that they are incubating their egg while they are surviving themselves.
So this is our nursery room. So we had some chicks in here recently. I'll get to show you guys when we go upstairs. So we have, you know, when they're super small, we put them in the brooders over here with the heat lamps. You know, underneath the parents, it is super warm and hot, like the 90s, mid to high 90s. And as they get bigger and bigger, they eventually stop to be underneath the parents. And when they can't fit underneath the parents, actually them being exposed to the coldness is what starts getting them to develop their other feathers, their adult feathers. So we'll put them in here and then eventually take them upstairs where they are now. This room here is our fish house. So we prepare about 650 pounds of fish every day for the birds. That includes herring, capelin, different types of smelt, like night smelt, Peruvian smelt, silverside smelt, and then they also get krill. So we get a nice variety of fish and everything in here. So we'll prep all that in the morning in here, and then take it upstairs into the exhibit. This large hose is our snow hose. So we have a giant 2 to 3 story silo that has I want to follow me up here. We'll head on into the exhibit. I'll have you guys step into the carpeted footbath one more time, just like the front door. And you can head on in, and then just be careful not to reach over and touch anybody. They might not be as nice as some of the other guys. Welcome to the office, everyone. So, chicks that I was telling you guys about are right here. We have 8 species total here at the park, 6 of which are here in our exhibit. Yeah.
Could you send some of the speakers, please? Could you send me Grace or Zandra?
Yeah.
So I can speak to them, please?
Yeah. If you guys don't mind, I'll just let you guys kind of observe and I'll be right back. Different species that we have. So obviously we have our Macaroni right here. We have our Adelie penguins here. So they have the white Cheerio eyes. These guys are gentoo penguins with the white band over their head. And a bunch of the other emperors are all hanging out on the edge there. Now, if you look right, these 3 kind of tall guys closest to us right in this lane. The guy that's kind of preening his butt, that is a king penguin, and then the big guy behind him is an emperor. So it's a good way of comparing the two. The king has that orange spot, that's kind of right where their ear would be, whereas the emperor has more of a whitish yellowish spot that blends into the chest that's white.
Yes.
So this is a king. Is this?
Glad.
Oh, okay. This is Vlad. Yep. So the kings have a much longer beak than the emperors do. But yeah, he's pretty cool. Let's see, we also have chin straps. So let me see if I can show you an adult chin strap. So you see the guy that's right on the edge of the white, right on the edge of the water, he's got the black line underneath his chin. Chin strap penguin. So that's where you get the namesake there. So we have 3 different ways of feeding the penguins every day. We can go out with buckets and hand feed them. We can either toss fish into the water to kind of give them more of a natural feed, or we have they're not hypersensitive to it, so it allows us to work in here. But as I said, so yeah, emperor, king, yeah. And what's actually really cool about these emperors here is that we're one of the only places that you'd be able to see them.